Hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar in Contemporary Tendencies in the Event Design. I'm Laura Fassi, Head of the Admission Office of SPD, the Scuola Politecnica di Design in Milan. Let me introduce you to our special guests, Enrica Baccini and Filippo Perfido. We are very proud to have them amongst our master's professors. Enrica Baccini is the director of the Study Center of Fondazione Fiera Milano, our main partner for SPD's Master in Event and Exhibition Design, and she's part of the committee of Yes Milano, an agency for the promotion of the city of Milan. And Filippo Perfido is an Italian writer, producer, and event manager. Together with Amos Bianchi as moderator, who is the academic director of SPD, they will introduce you to the all new trends in the field of the events and exhibition design. At the end of this presentation, we will answer all your questions. Please feel free to write them in the chat anytime. Before giving the word to our guests, I would like to give you a quick introduction about SPD. We are in Milan, and as all you know, Milan is the world capital of design, and having the opportunity to live here for a year, it's a great experience because you can breathe the design thinking everywhere. Milan is the place to be for students and for the professionals. It's a vibrant city for its lifestyle, and consider that we are near Bovisa, Isola, and Garibaldi districts, places where there are many events for young talents. About SPD, the school was founded in 1954, which makes it the first high-level design school in Italy. It's an Italian excellence in the field of design. For us, creativity is a daily task, and in here we nurture talents from all over the world. We are in a multicultural environment. This is an international university. The school received several awards, such as the gold medal of the Triennale Design Museum of Milan and twice the first prize of SMAU Industrial Design. You will have the chance to learn from the best professionals and have the great opportunity to have an internship in international companies. The Master in Event and Exhibition Design is an interdisciplinary course with the aim of training new professionals who combine a design approach with management, marketing, and communication skills. So now let's figure out together what the contemporary tendencies in the event design might be. Amos, I give you the word.
Thank you very much, Laura, and welcome everybody. I am Amos Bianchi, and I am the academic director of SPD. I'm here just to spend a few words about the Master in Event and Exhibition Design. Currently, we are delivering the first edition of the Master. You cannot see it, but exactly in a room in front of me, I have students working with Ico Migliore in the first project of exhibition design. This master is extremely ambitious. It's made of different sorts. We have the part of design in the course of design system, about a strong part of business in order to explore the trade and fair system. On the top of that, we have the three main labs, one of management, one of event, and one of exhibition design. This structure is quite peculiar in a master program. The will to combine disciplines like management, event design, and exhibition design that look quite different, but anyway, their will to merge this different world was exactly the aim of this master. It's what we want to teach, not only to be an exhibition designer or an event designer or a manager of events and fairs and exhibitions, but how these three different parts of the same project, let me say, are in dialogue. And I invite you to raise questions during the speech of Enrica Baccini and during the presentation about the contemporary tendencies in event design by Filippo Perfido. But first of all, I thank you, and I leave a word to Enrica Baccini, whom I kindly address the question, why the need to blend and to merge some souls, some words that are different, basically. Thank you very much, Enrica.
Thank you, Amos, for this introduction. And
oh, maybe we are having a problem with the connection of Enrica, and maybe
yes, I agree with the word you use. This is an ambiguous.
Sorry, Enrica, there was a gap in your connection. Would you mind to repeat what were you explaining?
Yes, of course. Excuse me for this. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Oh no, unfortunately, a second gap in the connection of Enrica Baccini, the course leader of the program. So I think maybe, okay, let's say we will be back to Enrica to discuss all together with you for a session of a Q&A, maybe, at the end of a presentation of Filippo. So Filippo Perfido was introduced by Laura, and he is a writer, producer, and manager. He had some experiences of work in foreign countries, but in the last 5 years, he came back to Italy to work with the main event agencies of this country. And so I leave room to Filippo to start with this presentation about contemporary tendencies in the world of event design. And thank you very much, Filippo.
Thank you, Amos. Thank you, Laura, and everybody for attending this. Should we try and give Enrica one last chance, third time lucky, as they say, without video? Maybe that was what stopped it, what created the gap. Should we give her a third chance so she can introduce?
Maybe Enrica, we see you right now.
Okay, can you see me?
Yes, very good.
Great.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go. So let's go back. Let's go back to.
This is why we love face-to-face events.
Exactly.
Sorry for this technological inconvenience. Yes, I was telling the fact that this is really an ambitious master course, as you said, Amos, because we want to blend different kind of disciplines and different worlds. MEED is based on this hybrid approach, and the roots lay in the design thinking. The only way to understand and also to teach and to comprehend this fantastic world of exhibitions and event is starting from design thinking. Exhibitions and events, for me, are moments in space and time where participants dive into social and economic dynamics. The magic of exhibitions and events lies in the possibility to trigger change and to promote cultural and economic innovation. They can really shift the development trajectories of many sectors and also of some countries and, of course, of cities. And there are plenty of examples worldwide of the role played by leading exhibition like Filippo Perfido will told you in a few minutes. So events and exhibition offer memorable and emotional connection. They trust building interaction, opportunities, and they allow people to gain knowledge. They are platform for people from many different countries and background to express their ideas, create innovation, and to do business. We are not just talking about communication or design, but we are talking about very complex situation, really enjoyable and very dense of relationship and knowledge. And they can really create magic among people, among sectors. And of course, this magic doesn't happen by chance. And with MEED, I think we have created the right master course where people can learn how to make this beauty and this magic happen. And today we will have exactly an idea of the possibility we offer with this master course, thanks to the lecture of Filippo Perfido. Filippo is a writer, he's a producer, he's a manager, and after establishing one of the first indie labs in Italy in the 90s, Gamma Pop, he spent the best part of the new millennium making TV and working for the Italian National Broadcasting TV, RAI, and for MTV, and many other broadcasting companies in Italy. Then in 2013, he moved to Scotland, where between 2014 and 16, he acted as CEO and creative director for GMAG Film, a social enterprise delivering community-based skills and talent development projects, as well as employability programs for the film and TV industry. So a very peculiar and interesting experience made in Scotland. In 2017, he returned to Italy and started working with the two main event agencies of our country. And he was also creative director and co-producer of two documentary films, very well known here and really original. He's currently working as a creative consultant for Balich Wonder Studio and KSA in Riyadh. And he's running Mutiny, a brand new content factory based in Milan. I'm sure you will enjoy his presentation. Filippo, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Enrica, and especially thank you for taking away a very tough task from me. That is to say, explaining why events and exhibitions in the same breath, I will say, not only in the same master. If I have to explain what an exhibition is, I have to use the word event. So just to tell you what type of favor you just did to me. Anyways, I would like to jump right into the few things I'd like to say. Sometimes it might sound like I'm telling you things you already know. Sometimes it might sound like I'm telling you things that are taking us away from the main subject of this conversation, but it will all make sense in the end, hopefully. That's my goal, that's my aim. Let's get into this straight away. So can you all see my screen? Hopefully that's
definitely
happening.
yes, Filippo.
Okay, good stuff. Anyways, this is the title of this conversation, and this is the first thing I would like to start with. Very simple, extremely basic. What is an event and what is an exhibition? The main difference, I would say, is that one is static, one is dynamic. One goes on for a particular amount of time. The other is an event, something that happens once. And that's just if we stick to mere and to the mere definition of the two words. However, not only in the past few years, but I would say in the last 15 to 20 years, the two terms, the two words, and the two industries, if you like, have been contaminating each other and merging somehow more and more. One is influencing the other, and what makes the difference really is the capacity to design them in a way that makes sense for that particular occasion and for the particular task at hand. But also to read the room, as one will say, or read the brief, as we will say, and create something that not only makes sense in the particular moment and time, but also space where we are creating and delivering an event, but that will also leave a legacy. I will talk briefly at some point about what our industry is to show you how it's changing and how it is, if you will, feeding off different gene pools. That's how I put it here. Ours is an industry that relies heavily on the specialists, but more and more it also relies on people who have a different approach to work, a different approach to life, and I will say not only different skills, but also different interests. And that's exactly what both Amos and Enrica were saying. Enrica explained you very well why events and exhibitions are so important and interesting, because they bring people together. They not only communicate that a new product is out there, or that somebody needs to buy something, but it also communicates changes in the way we live our everyday life. So at the end of the day, it's two worlds that are not colliding, but merging very gracefully. I would also like to share in the next slide a few kind of events that I've personally worked on and that will come up at some point during this brief chat. Of course, I started by saying that we not only communicate why that a product has been launched, that a product is out there, but we also try and communicate it on different levels and through different channels and media. Corporate events are still, I guess, the backbone of our industry. Brands and companies get in touch with the event industry, with event agencies, event management agencies, in order to deliver events that are related to their products and whatever it is that they need to communicate. This particular event I worked on in Venice in 2019 was interesting because we're celebrating 100 years of a popular beverage, but also it leveraged heavily on interest of people who like to go out and meet and take part in festival, and in this particular case music festival. But we also needed to give it an extra level of visibility, and that's why it also became a TV show for Sky. The most complex events you can work on are ceremonies, opening ceremonies for World Cups, Olympic Games and whatnot, or national days, as this event here in KSA in Riyadh in 2019. Festivals are events, and they are events that are particularly interesting because they not only display a series of singers, artists, visual artists, whatever, but they also need to have activities and activations throughout. This is a street art festival I worked on in Riyadh last year, and it's going to happen again this year, hopefully. We launch products, but when we launch products, we try to launch them by leveraging on the emotions of the brands that are behind these products, but also of the fans, of the people who love that these products, or the area, the segment of market that these products are part of. Activations are events where for a day or even an hour during a day, there's a takeover of a city or a particular place where something is communicated again. And finally, seasons. A season is, I would say, a series of events, a sort of collection of events that takes place in a particular area and space. Again, very quickly, because time is key here, and we want to proceed. I left seasons and I talked about space at the very end, because one of the, I would say, of the main trends in event and main tendencies in the event industry has definitely to do with space, with location, with a particular area of a city, or even a region and a country. I'll start very quickly with what I consider to be probably the best example of how the exhibition and event world can work hand in hand and create something that's both leverages on the place where it takes place, but also leaves a legacy, and in this particular case becomes what is effectively the most important and prestigious furniture and design fair exhibition in the whole world. That is to say, Salone del Mobile di Milano, or if we want to call it that way, Milano Design Week, or what is effectively a part of it, that is to say the Fuori Salone, the fringe, the Salone fringe, if you will. So it's three names, two different concepts, if you will. On the one hand, we have a trade fair that has to do with design and furniture, and that was started by furniture companies in the 60s in Milan. On the other hand, there's a takeover of the city, which becomes effectively for about a week the world capital of design. Everything about the city has to do with design. The city becomes very cool. Lots of stuff happens, and not only stuff that has to do with design and with the furniture industry, but with brands in general. So it becomes an occasion for people to meet, for people to discover new things. You can go to a party launching a new line of cosmetics to an art exhibition. There's pretty much everything inside. And why I do believe that this is a good starting point, on the one hand, because it has to do with Milan, and on the other hand, because it could only happen in Milan. In Milan, we live and breathe design and fashion. The two most important events that happen in the city are obviously the Design Week, but also the different fashion weeks that happen throughout the year. And why this happens? Because of the history of the city, because of a city that is made of a lot of people coming from all around the country and all around the world as well. So there's a lot of different influences and contaminations going on there. But more to the point, it leaves a legacy in the city. So it's a two-way conversation. On the one hand, this could only happen in Milan. So again, space is important because this is a city that has to do with this. But on the other hand, we don't need to give things for granted, and we need to leave a legacy so that this type of event can grow and grow and grow even more. So I'm talking about Milan, which is a city where I live and that I'm currently in, and where also this master takes place. But I would like to go back and where we're talking about the importance of place to another country that I know really well, that is to say Great Britain. What happened in Great Britain in 2012, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of Cool Britannia. We're going a bit backwards in time. But in the 90s, in Great Britain started celebrating what was cool about the country in the 90s. In the art world, it was Damien Hirst. In music, it was Blur and Oasis, and then you had Danny Boyle, and then you had Kate Moss and all of that stuff. These all, if you will, had its highest moment in the 2012 Olympics in London in the opening ceremony, under the creative direction of film director Danny Boyle. So an interesting choice. The ceremony that took place there and then is still considered probably one of the best that ever happened in the history of Olympics, because it used different languages within a well-established context. By different languages, I mean it fed off film, it fed off storytelling, it fed off music. It wasn't just a show celebrating the Olympics. It was a show that spoke different languages, so contamination was key there, but it was also a show that was strongly leveraging on the spirit of a country. However, it was looking back. It wasn't really building anything. It was like the highest point, the peak of a country at the time, but it didn't build on what was a common ground throughout the whole country. It didn't have a vision going towards the future. A couple of years later, Glasgow hosted the Commonwealth Games. Obviously, the Commonwealth Games are the Olympics for what was back in the days the Commonwealth, the British Empire around the world. So it's a smaller version of the same thing. However, Glasgow, which was a very poor city for most of the 80s and 90s, leverage on a spirit that was growing throughout the country. So the way they went about this event wasn't a celebration as much as building something, going towards a common goal, a common aim, and leveraging on what was going on in the future, not what will be going on in the future, and not on the past of the country. The same thing happened pretty much in 1992 in Barcelona, but it was too early. Languages weren't, events weren't as multi-layered as they are in the present and will be in the future. So it was a very good opportunity that was missed. So again, timing is key. And as I said at the beginning of this conversation, of this chat, I do believe that reading the room and reading the place is really important. So understanding properly what are the main ingredients to use in order to build a good strategy for an event and for designing the right event for the right time. Because in events, you need to rely on the roots of the place where you are, but also on the vision, on a shared vision, which is often the engine of an event. And lastly, I will say that they also need to create and leave a legacy, as it happened in Milan. So you read your past, you leverage on your roots, but you also try to create a legacy so that the place where you are delivering an event, where you are designing an event, will be doing the same thing over and over from different angles, from different perspectives, while building a conversation with the people around, but also an industry where people can work and where a communication can be established between people, when emotions, but also contents can be communicated and promoted. The mother of all exhibitions, if you will, is the expo, where trade and the public meet. Expo 2015 was also something that changed Milan in terms of giving the city a sort of a new light in which to be seen around the world, even though it didn't create the same legacy as obviously the Salone del Mobile, the Milano Design Week. It still had an impact on the city. The same thing happened in Dubai in actually 2021, even though the expo was 2020, but we all know why it happened the year after. In this particular case, it didn't really leave a legacy in the city. It didn't really change the game in the city, but it was very interesting because it became a sort of huge playground for people from around the world to go and experiment on different angles and on different tools to use an event. It was like, the way I will put it is, it was a sort of expo in overdrive. And finally, and you can see some pictures here of the three examples I'm bringing you. In Milan 2015, we leveraged very much on what is the spirit of the city. So again, the importance of place. And one of the icon for that particular expo was the Tree of Life, which is still considered a sort of standard for these sort of things. Dubai relied on, obviously, the many lights and spectacular things that happen in the city. And a few weeks ago, Rome had its candidacy show for Expo 2030, again, relying on its past, the Colosseum, while using technology and modern tools and a show approach to basically to put its name on the map and to host this big event in 2030. Before entering the second and probably slightly less worthy parts of this thing, I wonder if there's any questions at this point.
Filippo, we have already received 4 quite intriguing questions, but I will leave them at the end of your speech. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
No worries. Going on, this is what I call the ification of events. We are all familiar with the term gamification. Many things that we were used to have in our everyday life have been somehow gamified, from watching a film to using apps to do just about anything in our life, and so on and so forth. What happened though is that whereas events, while being dynamic, were also kind of static in many ways. They were something that happened, and nowadays they have become more and more complex. Technology gives us a chance to create multi-layered and multi-level shows, even for small events. I'm not only talking about large-scale events. So while the lines between events and exhibitions are constantly blurred, on the other hand, we are also forced to creating more and more complex shows. And another tendency, if you will, that's or a trend, if you will, that we can discuss or talk about when we talk about events is definitely creating multi-layer and multi-level stories and events and shows when we go about whatever it is that we need to do. Why that? Because events are not just the dynamic display or exhibition of something. They are also in many ways what I call the ultimate form of entertainment. Why? Because they rely on different elements, and whereas up until a few years ago we were just leveraging or relying on the main ingredients. I have to deliver a show. That show will happen either on a stage or a field of play. Now I can use so many elements. It's crazy. So the example I always make has to do with my previous career in film and TV. Film is an extremely complicated process, both in terms of time and delivery. However, it's just one thing that needs to be perfected. In events, you can use film as much as anything digital. You can use the most extreme technologies, even in small events. You have live interaction, you have live action, and effectively, and that brings me back to what I was telling you in the previous slide. When we want to create a multi-layer show, we need to take into consideration this is a fundamental, a paramount aspect in our world, in our sector today. So they are the ultimate form of entertainment, but they're also like a live action storytelling. They are something that happens in a particular moment and that creates a connection with people and raising and creating emotions on people. The next level is what I call permanent shows. So creating events that not only last for one day, the big events, some of the events that I showed you earlier on, but events that go on in a particular place for a long time, so that they can replicate it throughout time and recreate that experience for more and more people. And the two elements that we want to try and put together in order to create this are space, experience, and the show element. So destination experience is one of the way forwards in the event industry, in the event world, is linking a place, Milano, but also holiday places, like the classic ones, by the seaside or mountains or country regions or whatever, to a series of events in order to make the experience for people going to these places more interesting and to if you will, allure even more people in, not only people that are interested in that particular place, but people that are interested in the combination of the two things, the place in its unicity, but also what happens in the place, the events, the exhibitions, the shows. And this is what I call the eventification of place. urban development, it's something that's happening in every city and in every country, and many times it has a negative, a slightly negative connotation, because it's usually linked with gentrification, a word that often has negative connotations. However, it is also a way to make a city better. And making a city better doesn't only mean creating better buildings, better housing, or places where people can go and have sports and whatever. It also means creating places where people can meet and can do things and see things and learn things. And events create just that, and are an integral part, a very important part of this process. Think of what happened in cities like New York and Berlin, but also think of how certain events, from big sporting events to smaller events or music events, have put certain cities or certain areas on the map. Why? Because, and this is yet another very important aspect of our sector going forwards, it is very important to link the place to the content, to create content that speaks to with that place, and to create content that has a legacy on that place on the one hand, but also gives that place a new light and a new life on the other hand. So events need to have a role in the change of the world we live in, of the cities we live in, and all of that. A premium example of this is another country I know pretty well, as I lived there for about a year last year, and I worked and still work in that country. I will not be spending too much time here. I'm not going to talk about the country by itself. All I can say is that it's probably the fastest changing country in the world at the moment, and it's a country that is using culture, music, sports, exhibition, and events as a driver of change. Why? Because the country is changing. The people living in the country, or people moving to the country from the area and from all over the world, need things to do, need things to see. And what better way to do this than creating something that is worth checking out, attending, watching. And this happens in big cities like Jeddah, the F1 Grand Prix, for instance, or Riyadh, where many things happen, exhibitions, festival, and probably the biggest season in the country at the moment, in the boulevard of Riyadh, but also in smaller areas of the country. I will make two examples here. One area is the Azir region, Aba and the Azir region in the southern part of the country, which is the least Arabic place you could think of. It has forest, it has sea, it's 20 degrees, and it rains all the time. But in the last couple of years, the local councils and have tried to make sure that the people going there on holidays always had things to do, from theme parks to events to concerts and whatnot. Same thing in the northern region, in beautiful Alula, which is a country in the desert. It's one of the best places you could think of, and it has had a season for many years with like hundreds of events happening at the same time. This has driven the country forwards, as the place is growing in services, hotels, restaurants, things to do, people moving there to work and whatnot, but mainly people visiting from all over the world, not only because of the place, but because of the things to see and check out. And finally, but this is something for another time, as it's very much ahead in the future, Neom, the city of the future that is being currently built on the Red Sea. Here you will see like three pictures that will tell you probably not much, but this is the Riyadh Boulevard, which is a sort of open air theme park that is activated for a couple of months throughout the year, and where a lot of things happens in terms of events, shows, exhibitions, and hundreds of thousands of people take place and just check it out on a daily basis when the season is on. In the middle, you have another example of a music festival produced by a local agency called Middle Beast. It's called Soundstorm. It's an electronic music festival happening every year in the desert outside of Riyadh. And it's possibly, at the moment, I'm not sure it's the biggest music event in the world, but one of the biggest ones. And it's becoming more and more popular with musicians and fans all around the world, and it definitely has, or had a couple of editions ago, the biggest music stage ever built. And finally, but this is probably something I am not completely allowed to disclose, Sindala, which is an island off Neom, where some things will happen at the end of the year. And again, it's this is yet another example of how a place is not only promoted, but conceived not just in terms of the space in itself, or the housing for the people who will go there, or for the tourists who will go there, but also of what happens there. So again, events are not only a sort of add-on to a place. Events are more and more an element that need to be part of the process of change in a particular area. Finally, and this will be quick, I promise, I tend to be very wordy, it's what I called a full integration. Full integration means that all of the elements that are parts of an event, or can be parts of an event, they need to speak with each other, and they need to be conceived at the same time with the same goal, and going in the same direction, contaminating and merging into each other. However, we also need to be very smart, and we need to try and consider all things around us. Never, and this is something that's happened a lot in the past, and this is also something that connects or links in a way the event, the process for delivering an event with the process of producing a film. You don't need to think of the now, you need to think of the future, because this is when an event will be attended and an event will be enjoyed. During the COVID era, we had, I personally had like basically every day calls about what can we do to make events in a time when people cannot be in the same place at the same time. And everybody was going crazy. There was a frenzy towards the latest technological solutions to make sure that even though I was 1,000 kilometers from a place where an event was taking place, it was as if I was there. Now, obviously, that was used at some point, but it didn't really take us anywhere. However, that was also in our world, in our sector, the time when we realized that digital tools are extremely important. Not just that, but also communication. So again, there was a moment of crisis, a problem which turned for us in an opportunity. So not only we need to think about the future and not concentrate too much on what we are on the now, on the present time, but we can and we need not to be scared of something that is new and that might, in our opinion, be a sort of substitute for what we do. And that includes probably our AI at the moment, but we need to use it and integrate it even more in what we do. So again, when I say that full integration is extremely important, I mean it both in terms of content and tools. And this is yet something else that needs to be taken into consideration. Our sector is a sector that speaks many languages. It's a sector where people from all walks of life have entered, and for many times people needed to be in a way self-trained, especially the specialists, no pun intended here. However, it is also a sector that is now developing a new generation of specialists, people who know the ins and outs of this sector, of this world, but also people who come from different backgrounds and have different skills and, if you will, different habits from people who came before. When I say that events need both specialists and all-rounders, that is true. We need people who can do extremely well what they need to do. Our sector is an extremely well-oiled machine, But we also need people who need to think, and I don't really like usually to use this expression, but out of the box, who can think 360 and who can bring in something new every time. And this is also, I believe, one of the way forwards. Finally, and I promise we're almost there. I'm not going to tell you, probably it's going to be in the questions, how we work, how we operate, or even what we are looking for in our sector. But what I can tell you is that yet another trend or a necessity, in my humble opinion, is to go from extreme specialization to a full integration of skills and know-how. And what new generations can bring to the table is exactly that, is what people who came from outside of our sector brought into the picture at the time they were involved. The reason why I spent quite a few words about the 2012 London Olympics opening ceremony, it's because it's still considered a sort of milestone in our world. It's still considered the first ceremony of the new era, of the new generation. Why? Because it had been conceived by a creative director who didn't come from that arena, from that sector, but he was working, Danny Boyle was working with people who were specialists in that sector, but he brought something new, and he shifted the conversation from more of the same to something new. The same thing has been done throughout the years by people coming from other sectors and thinking in a different way. Some of the companies and people and shows that we all know throughout the world, Dragone, Cirque du Soleil, whatever. These are people who come from different walks of life. Now it's a new era. So we not only need people coming from different walks of life and then moving into this sector, into this arena, but we also need people that start with the same knowledge, competence, know-how that professionals and specialists have, but have naturally inbuilt, if you will, a different mindset. They think in different ways, and they can bring that to the table to create something new. And so to give us, from our generation and from our sector, the trends for the future. And so, this picture here, which seems useless or senseless in this particular scenario, isn't. The Nike billboard, this is a Nike billboard in New York City, where new technological very cool things happen usually, and it's one of the things that we look at, and we are in order to take something we might need for our future events. It's just an example, but looking beyond the ordinary, looking beyond what I told you, beyond the examples that I gave you, and that probably your colleagues in the future will give you, is also key to create something new that we cannot define and explain at the moment. I will not leave you telling you how to develop and create a modern event, but I will give you just a very, very quick example. I think that you're probably familiar with three of the biggest music festivals in the world, Lollapalooza, Coachella, and Burning Man. They are beyond a music festival. They are an example of exactly what I was telling you about. Something that has to do with music, but with many other things around. Now, what you don't know is that all of these three festivals were created by people who were interns, or I don't think they had interns. I don't think they were set up for interns, but who were like all around young people working probably for scraps at three music events that took place in Los Angeles, California, and around Los Angeles, California in the early 80s, called Desolation Road. These were festivals that took place in different parts of the region of the state of California, in the desert, on a ship outside of San Pedro, in an abandoned depot in an industrial estate. And these were musical events that also had to do with art, but they also had to do with a particular community. And they were very avant-garde and experimental. Now, these things went on not only to influence, but being instrumental in the creation of something that became a new standard and something that we always look at in order to bring elements or steal elements at times for our events, whether they are Olympic ceremonies or art festivals or corporate events. I am not saying that that we need to stop that. There are, there's a lot of cool stuff happening there. However, if I can give you a little advice, is not to look at that, but to look at what happened before. So to look back in order to create something that will be new and will change the game in the future. And finally, I know I've been long and like 10 minutes longer than I promised, Amos. Sorry about that. I don't know what's next in the event industry. I really don't know. But if I have to point out 3 things that I do believe are important and need to be taken into consideration going forwards. First one is the importance of place. Place where things happen, where events take place, are paramount when we create something. We need to speak to that place and we need to create a legacy in the place. The second is the full integration, not only of walks of life experiences, people, but also of the tools, the media and the contents that we have at our hands. And the third, again, a word that we all use these days is algorithm. It defines our life, the advertising we receive in order to use a free email service, what we watch, the feed on our social media. Of course, there's no algorithmization, I don't know, of events, but definitely there is going to be more and more a customization of events that will be personal. Like, visitor journey is extremely important in events. We always need to create a journey for whoever come to an event or an exhibition or a combination of the two. More and more going forwards, we will need to create an experience that is different for all the people who will attend it. Obviously, it will be details, but that will be one of the key elements in the future. And that will be me. Thank you so much for your time and patience.
I'm the one who thank you, Filippo, because really your presentation, your lecture was, let me say, very, very inspiring. I took some pages of notes about what you say, from timing is key, place and content, till the last keyword, a different customer journey that looks like an extremely difficult challenge. And we have a few questions, and we have a room. I'm talking to our attendees if you want to a couple of more questions, but I immediately start. I think the first one is for Filippo from Georgia. If it's possible to define the most relevant skills of an event designers. You have described basically what event design is, but 3 keywords about the skills of an event designer?
I will say patience first.
Okay.
Process, and it changes a lot of time. What will happen a lot of time is that you will come up with an idea, you will change it or have it changed 10 or 15 times and then go back to the original idea. And it's really important not to say, but that was my first idea, but to just get there as a process because that's the way it is. Curiosity, I will say, that's another thing. I know it's a bit mundane to say stuff like that, but I do believe it is important, and it's part of what I was telling you earlier on. Don't just rely on what's within your little area, little or big that it is, doesn't really matter. But try to look outside of it, and don't be afraid of bringing to the table things, ideas, and even tools that are not supposed to be there. And finally, and yet again, I will not say anything new, but creativity 360. Like I will say, a very solid creativity, like creativity with your feet on the ground. Like, just make sure you always understand what you're doing and who you're doing who you're doing it with, and that you're doing it for somebody, because ultimately you're doing it for the people who will attend an event, an exhibition, or whatever it is.
Thank you very much. Passions, curiosity, and creativity 360. You know, here in Milan, we are going to have in 3 years the ceremony of the Winter Olympic Games. That's one of the biggest world events ever. And I'm already wondering, what's the key to tell the complexity of something that is Milano, that is Cortina, and that are the skills that an event designer must practice to tell the world what the place is. And a second question, also related to skills as well, and I would address it to Enrica, please. In order to enter the master, what are the skills that we require from students? I mean, what should have they studied during their previous BAs?
Yes, thank you for this question. We don't have particular degree. We, of course, welcome designers of different kinds, so designers of space, designers of communication, interaction designers, but also people who have a background in, let's say, social sciences, going from economics to political science to communication. And in fact, this year we have a very diverse class with people having different knowledge background. Half of them comes from design, and the other half come from humanities. So this is something that we really welcome, and it is totally in line with what Filippo just described us. The important thing is to have the possibility and also the availability to listen to different kind of cultures, because events are basically a cultural moment, you know, something thanks to which you can change the path of cities, countries, business communities. So we don't just want people who are able to draw, design things on a specific software, but we really welcome people coming from different backgrounds.
Thank you very much, Enrica. And I think, thank you, Georgia, for raising these questions. And I go back to the first question from Valerio, but I think we have already answered. And the question was if the online side of an event is important, but Filippo, you have clearly stated and described how contemporary events are completely multi-layered.
Yeah, and if I may add something, it doesn't just need to be, because it can be much more, it doesn't just need to be what you see on the ground, but online. It can and it should be a different thing. We should be able to tell the same thing and to have the same event and show in slightly different ways, in depending on the media. And to give you an example, one of the pictures I used at the beginning was a product launch event, and it was also the first large-scale event in Italy after COVID in 2020, September 2020, in Modena, and it was the launch of the new Maserati MC20 supercar, and under the creative direction of Marco Clefish. It was also interesting because it was both an event and an exhibition of the Maserati history in the city of Modena. So it was, again, merging the two things together. But the show was like a huge show that was enjoyed by about 300 people on the ground. Some of them were sitting in the stands, others were sitting in 40 Maserati cars from pretty much every decade, drive-in style. But what people could watch online and in the video was different, because we used what then for events was new, augmented reality. But now, obviously, it's every time it comes out in meetings, it's like, oh, not again, not that again. But at the time, it was a way to do just that, and also that the show was slightly different. So yeah, it's really important. It's more and more important, both in the road to an event, create something around it, and during and after, in order to show it. But it doesn't need to be the same thing online. I know you're probably somebody who was born way later than me, and for you this is basic. But just make sure to help people you will work with and for understand that it's not the case.
I fully understand this point, and thank you. So we haven't received no more questions, but perhaps a last one from Valerio, and I try to rephrase it. Let me say, I have half an hour, okay, of free time to make a research about an event. Just one. What would you suggest me, Filippo and Enrica? So maybe our attendees have a little homework for the next minutes.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one. Do you have an answer?
Just half an hour.
Just half an hour. If you want an entire day.
I'm a researcher. I'm a researcher in social sciences. So if you tell me just half an hour over, to me is really a great challenge, because to me, research is the most important thing. So I take the time to do all the researches to solve something or to give answers. Research on events, having to think about a new event, a new concept. I need some help from Filippo.
Okay, I will try. I will give an answer that also ties to what to what Amos said at the end of my first answer about the Winter Olympics in Milan and Cortina. I think that you might want to start looking into what is the top shelf of the event industry. That is to say, the Olympic but mainly the Olympic ceremonies, because as somebody who watches football matches, and as a professional of this field, not football but events, I usually try to avoid what happens before football. It's not often that is interesting, apart from what we did in Qatar, which was great, obviously. But joking aside, I will concentrate on Olympic ceremonies, both summer and winter. You can pretty much find most of those on YouTube or anyway online. You don't need to watch them, in their entirety, because otherwise you need a week. But I think that by starting there, you will both be able to see patterns in the events, but you will also need to, and this is an exercise more than a research probably, to underline the changes throughout the years, and especially in terms of storytelling, use of technology, but also how certain elements, the protocol elements, the raising of the flag, the army or whatever, depending, are used and displayed. I think that believe that by starting this way, making a research this way, you will be able to start understanding the differences or the common ground. You will be able to see most of the talented people that have been working in events worldwide, who have been part of the process of these ceremonies. And ultimately, you will be ready for the ceremony in Milan in 3 years. So that's a research with a goal.
Thank you very much. Very good answer.
May I add something, Amos, at this point? And thank you, Filippo, for inspiring me. I'm an expert. I would say an expert of exhibition. So my field is more business, and the fact that people continue to meet and to enjoy exhibition and trade shows to do business. So it's another side of this very interesting word. I will say very simply, if I have just half an hour, what I usually do is to call a very informal meeting together with my colleagues and listening the different opinions of my colleagues, especially those who are younger, because they have a perspective that I don't have. So this is what I usually do, and it is the starting point of a research that can imply maybe hours and days of activity and collecting documents, having inspiration. This is what I would do in half an hour. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Enrica. So I think it's time to close. We started with a bright sun. Now there's a thunderstorm here in Milan in an hour. I don't know where are our attendees today. I thank you very much, Filippo Perfido and Enrica Baccini, for their precious words in the last hour. And I leave the stage to Laura. I thank you, our attendees, and I leave the stage to Laura to close this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Amos, Enrica, Filippo, for this conversation full of interesting insights regarding a unique specialization path. And now, if you want to know how to become an SPD student, it will be my pleasure to let you know how to submit a successful application. You can contact us at info@scoladesign.com, attaching the main documents to start with the selection. The documents are a passport, a motivation letter, a scanned copy of your bachelor's degree, the transcript of the subjects with grades, a resume, and your portfolio in PDF format if you have it, because it's not mandatory for this master. Then we can schedule a guidance via phone or video call to get to know each other better. My team and I will be at your disposal as a sort of personal coach throughout the whole application process, and we will guide you step by step until the enrollment. We are students from more than 60 countries, while the added value to our school with their different cultures, styles, and backgrounds and creativity. And now I read the last question. I'm interested in the Master in Event and Exhibition Design. I would like to schedule an interview to get more information and what is the enrollment deadline. Consider that we have a limited number of students in the classroom. So if you are ready, I can suggest you to schedule an appointment with one of us. You can ask for it by writing at info@scoladesign.com. You can have the opportunity to have a special discount of the 10% on the tuition fee if you can enroll by the end of May. And so my suggestion is to take this opportunity, this early bird. And if there are no further questions, thank you all for being here and for participating in the presentation of the webinar in Contemporary Tendencies in the Event Design. Have a good day and ciao from Milan.
Arrivederci, grazie.
Ciao.